Things not so sunny for General Motors. The U.S. Justice Department announcing today that GM would be fined $900 million for wire fraud and concealing facts about the deadly ignition switch defect that killed several people in the U.S. They declined, however, to charge individuals with crimes, even though certain people could be held accountable. So, should charges have been brought against company executives, even employees? Joining us on the KOGO Newsmaker line now is San Diego State University business ethics expert Dan Eaton. And Dan, tell us, is it surprising that the Justice Department would not have involved in specific individuals and executives with wrongdoing?
Well, Cliff, it's surprising on one level and not on another. First of all, though I'm not a criminal lawyer, it is clear that individual cases are going to be very hard to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, certainly in an organization of this size where power and responsibility is so diffused or spread out. It is surprising, though, on one other level, because just on September 9th, this very year, Deputy Attorney General Sally Quillen Yates sent a memo saying, look, it's not going to be enough to hold institutions accountable, corporations accountable. We want the individuals, because one of the most effective ways to combat corporate misconduct, and I'm quoting her, is by seeking accountability from the individuals who perpetrated the wrongdoing. Such accountability is important for several reasons. It deters future illegal activity. It incentivizes changes in corporate behavior. It ensures that the proper parties are held responsible for their actions, and it promotes the public's confidence in our justice system, close quote. Now, that's Deputy Attorney General Sally Yates, who just said that just last week, and yet here we are. So, but the bottom line is, though, that's an awful lot of money, Cliff. You're talking about almost $1 billion, and that hurts no matter how big a corporation you are.
Well, I guess that's a question, because a lot of people hear that and they go, $900 million, that's a lot of money. And then they'll say, on the other hand, well, it's General Motors. They probably got mega billions. Will it make that much difference? But you're saying they will feel the impact of that then?
Oh, they will, Cliff, and they'll feel it on a number of levels, not just the $1 billion, and that's nothing. That's not nothing. But they also, of course, have to pay out individuals, which is separate and apart, you understand, from this fine that they've agreed to pay. But more significant may be reputational issues, and those are going to be harder, I think, to recover, and will have difficult to measure effects on General Motors' bottom line for an indefinite period of time. So this definitely matters. But the reason the individual things come in is because nothing concentrates the mind like the prospect of going to jail. And so that's why when you look at laws like the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act and other laws like that the federal government enforces, there is a tendency and a drift towards focusing on individuals, because there's a feeling that will have a special deterrent that asking a corporation, especially a large corporation, to write a check will not.
Well, General Motors did, in fact, dismiss about 15 employees, including engineers and lawyers, for failing to act to resolve the switch problem. But you're saying that's not enough.
Well, although it could be, since you talk about that, the fact is that individuals are not only at risk if they engage in corporate wrongdoing of losing their freedom, which of course is awful, but also in losing their livelihood. And the individuals who are responsible, or at least the GM found in a 200-plus page report were responsible, have definitely suffered consequences on an individual basis, financial basis. Have they lost their freedom? No, they haven't. But to suggest that the way this unfolded doesn't deter this kind of conduct going forward, including this almost $1 billion fine that was just announced, probably understates the impact of this particular latest breaking news.
And this is pretty serious, obviously, because GM was faulted for not doing anything about this ignition switch problem long before. 124 people were killed, 275 injured. So obviously this is about as serious as it gets. And now, do you think then, Dan, that when somebody has to make a decision about doing business with GM, buying a vehicle from GM, they're going to remember something like this?
It's going to depend on how GM responds. And the fact is that CEO Mary Barra has done some very good things in response to this. She has changed what an internal report revealed was a dysfunctional corporate culture that included such things as GM nod, where everybody would agree that something should be done, but nobody accepted responsibility for it. The fact is that from reports, GM has responded in a very proactive way to deal with the dysfunction that led to the very problems that resulted in this fine today. And going forward, I think that's what people are going to be paying most attention to.
All right. Thanks very much. Some great insight. Dan Eaton, the San Diego State University business ethics expert. Thanks so much for joining us to explain kind of the impact and what it means for the fine that the Justice Department hands out to the GM of nearly $1 billion.